Is the BRI a success or failure? Well, it is colder now, summer is certainly over, and winter will be here before we know it. Autumn 2023 marks the 10th anniversary of the Belt and Road Initiative, or BRI, as it is usually referred to. What benefits has this initiative brought to the countries that signed up to this? None, if you believe Western media, but is that the truth? Had the BRI been the failure the Western media would like you to believe, I'm sure the Chinese government would have pulled the plug on this idea long ago. Also, what about the idea for the West proposed by US President Joe Biden to counter the threat of BRI? If the original BRI was a failure, then how could it be a threat to the Western hegemony coveted by the USA? In this video, I will use facts to show the success of the BRI and the inaction of the USA and its allies over the B3W initiative announced by President Biden in June 2021. Hi, I am John and welcome to my channel, Laowai in China. On this channel, my aim is to inform people that have never visited China what life here is really like, and not as is often portrayed in Western media. I cover topics such as travel, culture, as well as current affairs, both here and overseas, that reflect the day-to-day life here. Today's video is called, Is the BRI a success or failure? I hope you like this video, so sit back and enjoy. As I mentioned at the beginning of this video, the BRI turns 10 this autumn, and one undeniable fact is that the BRI has fast become the most important global development project in the world today. So far, around 150 countries, in addition to 30 international organisations, have joined the BRI in those 10 years. There is an intense level of media coverage in the West showing bias against the BRI. The bigger the BRI gets, the more intense the bias. Searching through the West's most popular search engine, Google, more than 90% of the search results will inform you that the BRI is a failure and debt trap for those countries participating in those development projects. But are any of these claims true? The short and simple answer is no. The Western mainstream media have contradicted themselves on numerous occasions. Chatham House is a think tank based in the UK, used and funded by the governments of both the UK and USA, has stated that, and I quote, "Developing country governments are not hapless victims of a predatory Beijing. They, and their associated political and economic interests, determine the nature of BRI projects on their territory, far from unfolding according to a Chinese strategic blueprint. The BRI is actually being built piecemeal through diverse bilateral interactions." In 2021, The Atlantic published an article stating Chinese banks are willing to restructure the terms of existing loans and have never actually seized an asset from any country. So not a failure or predatory system, as the Western media would have you believe. Here is another example of the success of the BRI, often misreported in the Western media. This one concerning Entebbe International Airport in Uganda. Western media claimed that China had forcibly seized the Entebbe International Airport from Uganda for failing to pay its loans that were due. Firstly, before we look in any detail at this outrageous claim, how could the Chinese forcibly seize the airport? It is a major construction project in an African country. They could not just carry it away in the middle of the night, as the report would have you believe. The incident in itself would have sparked an international incident, surely. Of course, the reality is nothing of the sort occurred. One small detail Western media forget to mention was the Ugandans had a 7-year period of grace for a 20-year loan that was organised in 2015, meaning that when the alleged incident of non-payment took place in 2021, however, The reality was the first payment was not due until 2022. But let's not let facts get in the way of media reporting. A fact is that BRI projects have brought enormous gains to China and its partner countries, the key being the win-win cooperation and connectivity, far different than the sensationalist news reports would like you to believe. Another unreported fact is that trade between China and the countries that are partnered through BRI has more than doubled since the BRI was founded in 2013. Another example of the success of the BRI can be found in Indonesia. The Jakarta to Badung high-speed railway became fully operational during October 2023 and cuts the journey time between the two cities from 3 hours to just 40 minutes. The introduction of the high-speed railway into Indonesia, with the train travelling at speeds of up to 350 kilometers per hour, has enhanced the lives of the people living along the route and seen an immediate change in the travel plans of Indonesians. Similarly, in Laos, the cross-border railway launched in 2021 connects the Chinese city of Kunming to the Laos capital, Vientiane. Since the introduction of the railway, tourism in the region has increased significantly, leading to the local population seeing an improvement in their standard of living. Enough about the BRI. Let us now take a look at the proposal of the Western countries. At the G7 summit in 2022, Joe Biden claimed there will be an investment of $600 billion to counter the Belt and Road Initiative. During the 2023 G20 summit, it was announced that the India, Middle East, Europe economic corridor would utilize infrastructure developed under the Belt and Road Initiative. Let me get this right. The same initiative that the Western media has claimed is a failure. The G20 or G7, whichever, want to conveniently use that same infrastructure for transporting goods on their rival scheme. The aim of the BRI at no point showed any intention to counter any third party or country. It was part of China's intention of the larger process of building a multipolar world where multiple countries could share together the fruits of development in a peaceful and democratic fashion. Let me repeat those last two words, democratic fashion. Rather ironic, really, that the leading democracies of this world were not able to see that vision. Now let's focus on the West's initiative on finding an alternative to the BRI. The proposed $600 billion in funding, which the US pledging $200 million of that budget, has not yet been collected to establish this proposed new global gateway. Instead, the West remains focused on Eastern Europe, and a crisis, many would say, was as a result of their own arrogance in extending NATO up to the border with Russia, something they had long ago promised would not happen. Washington's goal of creating an alternative to the BRI appears to have died a natural death before it got to the planning stage. Meanwhile, the BRI continues to expand, having attracted some 150 nations across all the world's inhabited continents. The B3W, or Build Back Better World, was announced by Joe Biden in June 2021 as a values-based, transparent and sustainable project. A project he believed would overcome the challenges posed by the BRI and provide poorer countries of the world with a superior alternative based on the US model of shared values, while meeting the infrastructure funding needs while retaining strong labour, environmental and transparency standards. Can anyone explain to me what past experience the USA has in these areas? What developing countries have the USA gone in and built up to the advantage of that developing country? In recent years, all the USA has provided in its quest for democracy has been destruction and displacement of millions. A year on from Biden's initial announcement at a summit in Bavaria, Germany in 2022, the G7 countries reaffirmed Biden's vision of the B3W, but further claimed they had been focusing on a new infrastructure investment program that would rival the BRI. Again, looking at confrontation and not working in partnership. This new project was labelled the Programme for Growth in Infrastructure and Investment, or PGII. At the concluding session of that summit, they reiterated the pledge to raise $600 billion over the next 5 years for infrastructure projects in developing countries under this global partnership. The chairman of Pakistan's Senate Defence Standing Committee, Mushahid Hussain Saeed, was quoted as saying that the sole purpose of B3W is to counter the BRI. This assessment gives considerably stronger when viewing the fact sheet offered by B3W, which clearly states that the G7 countries gather together purely to examine strategic competition with China. Let us just remind ourselves of the progress so far of the B3W. More than 2 years ago, with great fanfare, the Biden administration unveiled B3W as a copycat version of the BRI. Having made no progress with the B3W, it was rebranded as the PGII after just 1 year, but they failed to launch any projects under either banner. Since then, the EU has rolled out its own clone of the BRI, giving it the moniker Global Gateway. There is a definite Cold War mentality by the USA towards China. The Sustainable Development Policy Institute, based in Islamabad, conducted a research study in 2022 and found the origins of the B3W relate back to US attempts to counter the trade and technology aims of China. The US administration had previously attempted to halt the sphere of influence of Beijing by limiting Chinese exports to the US, the Caribbean, Africa, and markets of Southeast Asia through the United States Innovation and Competition Act, or USICA, and the Blue Dot Initiative. The Blue Dot Initiative is led by the US International Development Finance Corporation, together with the Japan Bank for International Cooperation and the Australian Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade. China's response to these initiatives was they were designed with one purpose, that of protecting US hegemony. China also stated that a handful of countries cannot rule the world. Blue Dot was established to analyse and certify the financial integrity, environmental sustainability, and impact of infrastructure development projects on economic development to encourage private capital investment abroad. That does not sound like aiding the development of poorer countries, just an investment opportunity for private investors. The most important aspect of the proposal, though, was to stop the rise and influence of China on the global market. The Blue Dot never got off the ground and was replaced by another failure, the B3W. The G7 countries claimed the B3W will be defined by combating climate change, creating secure information and communications technology, promote gender equality, as well as contributing to global health security through infrastructure or health systems. However, the reality is, why has the EU, the core of the G7 countries, opted to engage in this policy that could only be described as engaging in competition with China? It makes little sense, as the BRI has already established land and sea routes linking China to Europe through Asia, as well as trade with Africa. The BRI already offers development in the countries attached to these established corridors. The rivalry from Europe makes little to no logical sense. The BRI has established over 2,600 projects in more than 140 countries. These countries represent 40% of the world's population and a third of the world's GDP. The BRI has invested around $755 billion between 2013 and 2020. In 2019, global economic expert at CEBR predicted the BRI would increase the global GDP by $7 trillion per year. It also projected 56 developing countries would increase annually by more than $10 billion by 2040 due to BRI. So how can the EU hope to compete on that scale? One country that actually benefits from BRI is the USA, which further leads to disbelief at the action of that country in trying to curtail China. The USA gains through the sheer size of the US economy, but with more countries looking to bypass the use of the traditional international monetary routes, maybe that should be of more concern to the USA. Other international monetary markets will also gain from the success of BRI. Notably, most of those markets are in the leading democracies that are opposed to the success of the BRI. Western media is quick to incorrectly point out that BRI is nothing more than a money-making scheme for China. In reality, it brings much-needed investment and jobs into those developing countries, many of which have been exploited by Western countries for decades, if not longer. What the Western media also forget to mention is that should B3W get off the ground and try to rival BRI, more than half of the capital investment would be reinvested back into the US economy. There are some projects already funded by the US government through investment and aid agencies. These have been placed under the umbrella of the B3W. Investments totaling $3 billion were announced in telecommunications, healthcare, information technology and agriculture in India, Senegal, Ivory Coast, Southeast Asia, Romania and South America. These investments have led to a positive impact on US exports. One example is a solar energy project in Senegal, which will boost US exports by $1.3 billion. So maybe the mudslingers should take a look closer to home for some facts before slandering the BRI. The success of BRI cannot be understated, no matter how much mud the Western media tries to sling at it. Instead of this tiresome attacking of the BRI, the West would be far better off learning from it instead of ignoring its own problems of aging infrastructure, the declining standard of living and a destructive foreign policy. That is all for this video. If you have enjoyed watching and it's shown you a little detail of life here in China, then your subscribing to my channel would mean a lot to me. Thank you for watching. Make sure you click on the link to the next video, and until the next time, goodbye for now.